next, we have a panel discussion coming up on a very important topic. It centers around questions that Brandy and I get all the time as practitioners in the field, as well as, being hosts of an event like this. But the name of this panel that's coming up is Getting Experience Without Having the Title. And a lot of folks will reach out to Brandy and I and say, hey, we see you need 2 years of experience to get this, what seems like entry-level data analyst position. Well, how can I have experience, for an entry-level position if I've never been a data analyst? So it feels kind of circular, right? So we've brought together a group of 4 folks that are going to help tackle this question and help you, think about what are some things you can do to make your mark before getting that first role, so you can actually land it, even if you don't have the actual title data analyst, and actual experience under a data analyst title. So moderating this next panel, I'll start to pull everyone up here, is going to be Laura Venos, who is actually the director of career services for the MS in Business Analytics program at Georgetown University. Now, you might recognize Laura if you've been to a past summit, because she was actually a panelist at a previous event. She's been a huge supporter of our event, and we really appreciate that. Kind of been following us since day one, and it's awesome to have you moderate. I'm going to turn it right over to you. I got to point this way to Laura. I'll pull Brandy and I off and let you run with it. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you so much, Dustin and Brandy. I'm so excited to be here. Yes, I've been following along on this summit for about a year now, because I myself was trying to build a bridge and learn new skills in an area that was relatively new to me, so that I could better support folks. So as we enter whatever the transition is in your career, if you really present as someone who's just trying to learn and grow and help others, you'll find yourself very successful in achieving those goals that you have. And when we bring the panel together today, our goal, our collective goal, is to help you in the next 25 minutes feel a little bit more confident about your next steps, and the fact that you can get to that next level in your career if you think a little bit creatively about what you're bringing to the table and know exactly how that could affect where you're going. And so I am going to spend a lot of time talking to our amazing 3 panelists today. Each of them has their own unique career journey in how they were doing something and now they're doing something else relevant to data consulting, to analysis. And they're going to share with us how they made those changes in their careers, because something we heard in the keynote from Ava, there's so many great tips out there, and it can maybe feel like, how do I actually do this for me? And you should use her ebook and her tips. And then we're going to animate how maybe some of those tips even played out in real time for our 3 panelists. So without further ado, I would love our 3 panelists to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their career journey before we launch into some more specific questions. So maybe we can start with Jennifer. Oh, and Jennifer, it looks like you're muted.
Sorry. Hello. I'm Jennifer Rash. So my data career really is centralized around specifically visualizing data. Originally I began as a more traditional graphic designer, so focusing on print and digital media for B2B companies. But as the industry kind of shifted its focus, my work did as well, to more kind of specifically around digital product and UX. So from a data visualization perspective, a lot of what I work on really centers around visualizing UX processes. So things that are sort of more like events, like when people come together, you have user experience research, you have journeys, user journeys, you have workshops, all of those things kind of need to be kind of quantified, visualized. You need to be able to share them out and leverage the knowledge that you get from them. So that's a big part of what I do kind of from the data visualization side of things. And currently I'm working as a consultant for a software engineering firm. And I'm still kind of in that UX and design focus and finding ways to visualize those things to be able to explain out to our team and to clients. That's a little about me.
Thank you so much. Lots of creative skills kind of mashing together with the technical. Kelly, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah. Can everyone hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, my name's Kelly Adams, and I actually studied education in college to be a math teacher. Didn't really work out for me. And then after that, I kind of had a few random jobs, and I landed as a paralegal for about 3 years in real estate law. And I took the Google Data Analytics course, the very popular one, and I thought, this looks like a lot of fun. So I decided to try it out, and I actually made the switch last year in July of 2023. And right now I work as a data analyst at Golden Hearts Gaming Company, which is a social gaming company.
Lots of transitions there, Kelly. I can't wait to hear more about that. Liliana, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I hope you can all hear me. Yes? Okay, just checking. My name is Liliana Torres, and my career began when I moved to the US. I didn't know the language very well, and I was looking to work in technology as I graduated as a software engineer. I learned the language, but it wasn't enough. I needed practice. I started working on customer service, and it helps me to get the experience to be able to communicate. After that, I got pretty fluent. I got really well at my job, and I began searching for opportunities, right? When you don't have experience and you're recently graduate, you don't know where you're going to find. I got really passionate in about understanding in the business, in the side of the customer service. And then I got an opportunity to work in technical support. But this was the opportunity at the beginning of my data career, which I didn't know it was going to be. I was trying to understand the problems that they have in the business transactionally, because internal customers will call and say, the system is not working, the numbers are not matching, the information is incorrect. So I started asking questions around and trying to really debug in the front end what was the problem. And I work with the developers to tell them, hey, the data problem is here. You have this bug, it's calculating this wrong. You need to fix this in the data, in the software. And also made me realize that it's not about you have a software, you also have data, but data needs to have quality, right? Someone needs to check on that and validate those things. And this is how it all started. I got really curious about it, and I kept learning and always asking for an opportunity. Even they didn't tell me yes right away, I always kept asking, saying, see what I can do. I showed them, and with that experience is when I got that chance. Right now, I work as a senior data analyst at GitHub, which I mainly do a customer success area. My title is very general. I do it from data architecture all the way to visualization to our internal customers to understand how the business is doing and how can we leverage that data to the future to perform better, to have more releases, to have more information in the business to be able to grow those products.
Thank you so much. And I know we have a global audience on this event today, and certainly watching later after the live stream. Liliana, while I have you, I'd love to learn a little bit more about how relocating to a different country and lacking some, specifically prior experience that's like one-to-one with data, how did that really help you in launching your career in data? Because it sounds like you really approached this with a growth mindset and lots of curiosity.
Yeah, honestly, like moving to another country, which from Venezuela to the US, completely different culture. Everything functions differently, economically, daily. It was a big challenge to me, and it helped me to be more confident. I felt lacking of experience was really hard for me. I felt that I wasn't good enough, that it was not important, that I was not important enough because I was rejected many times. From talking to people to try to understand a conversation to getting a job, because in some of the times even my immigration status was a problem. Some people wouldn't understand that and I wouldn't get hired for. So all these challenges has helped me to realize that those obstacles are opportunities to what, to learn, to try new things, to see what other ways I can go to make that extra mile and get that opportunity. Because let's be clear, we always get rejected. It's always going to happen. Sometimes this is the dream job I want and I just don't get it, but it's okay, because that might not be the right fit for you. You'll find the right fit, the right people to work with will give you the opportunity. But the main constant is perseverance, to keep trying and take all those experiences and using them to grow and learn. And this is how I improve myself. I always was afraid to ask the wrong questions, but I did it anyway, because failing is always part to learn and open your mind to new horizons.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm inspired by your persistence and your perseverance, and working at GitHub now in an analytical role is probably what a lot of the folks on this call are aspiring to do, and just to take those lessons learned and apply them. Wonderful. Jennifer, I would love to hear a bit. It sounds like you have a really creative background. I understand you worked in graphic design before. Can you talk a little bit about the experience and the skills you gained from graphic design and how that's helping you now in your current role?
Sure. Yeah. You know, and as I think about it, I think some of these are kind of generalized skills in a way. I know, Liliana, you brought up curiosity, like curiosity being kind of a key thing. I think that's a kind of a pillar of design as well. Like if you are designing, you need to be very curious about, you know, who you're designing for and what you're designing about, and all of those things. And it just makes whatever it is that you're working on better. But also that's very transferable into, if you're kind of given a new task, it's something you're not familiar with, to kind of like tune out, you know, curiosity is a kind of a by default positive, you know, mental state. If you're curious, you know, you're kind of, you're more motivated and kind of upbeat about the new challenge instead of being worried or scared or those other things. So curiosity is a big one. I'd say experimentation is probably another big one, because you, as a designer too, I can only speak for myself as experience, but you kind of have this imagination that like, oh, if I become a good designer, that means I'm really good. I just do things and they come out really nice. But for me, it's all about getting used to being able to fail quickly. And that's the experimentation part, like to be able to like kind of quickly run through and, oh, this isn't working, throw it away. This isn't working, throw it away. And that trial and error is all, again, that's kind of, that can apply to pretty much anything. And then I think another big one would be observation. So when you are looking at something that is a beautiful design, you can recognize it as a beautiful design, but the next step to take is why. So like take apart that watch, figure it out, like it's working because of these things. But that is applicable again to anything that you see that is being done well. That could be management skills, that could be anything. You can always kind of dissect it down to its parts. Which again, when you're faced with something that is like you're kind of coming at it from kind of a sideways path, doing those things often and, you know, kind of just sort of leaning on those is very helpful, I think.
I envy your creative skills. I wish I had the ability to do that, and the ability to very quickly pivot, I think, is really important in any data career. That's really, really good advice. Kelly, we would love to hear, teacher to paralegal to data analyst, and would love to hear a bit about what that's been like for you and what the transferable skills have looked like throughout that journey.
Yeah, so I found there was a lot of transferable skills between all of those, and there's a few jobs missing, but I didn't stay at them that long, to be honest. But for me, one of them was communication. So as a teacher and as a paralegal, you need to communicate a lot with either students, parents, or clients. Anyways, they have a lot of things that they want, you can't always give. So as a data analyst, you need to communicate a lot with stakeholders, your coworkers, anyone else. So I found that that's one of the main skills that I was able to transfer, and kind of one of the things that made me stood out. And another one is attention to detail. If you're reading like a 100-page legal document, you need to be able to like look for the comma. That's not a joke. A comma has been a court case because it was in the wrong place. So for me, that's helped a lot, especially if you're looking at some data, you get a result back, and you just need to look at it and go, this actually doesn't look right. It's spitting out numbers, but the numbers don't seem correct. And kind of the last one is like problem solving. Paralegal teaching, you need to do a lot of problem solving, figure out different legal cases. So it's a lot of research, like this doesn't seem correct, or I don't know if you've done anything about this. So you need to come at it from different angles, and definitely teaching. Students don't always learn the same way. So you need to be able to understand and come at it from different angles and explain things. They all kind of interrelate with each other.
It's so interesting because the way you describe it, I can feel the how they are interrelated. But if I just saw on paper teacher, paralegal, data analyst, it would take me a minute to figure that out. So Kelly, can you tell us a bit? I know you did some upskilling too during that time. You probably identified like, I want to strengthen these skills so I can get to this next stage in my career. What advice would you have for those who are here? Maybe we have some former teachers or former whatever, who are thinking about becoming a data analyst and upskilling and owning those transferable skills and communicating them out. What tips would you have there?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was being able to craft a story of how one relates to the other. Because like you said, on a resume or on my LinkedIn, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So I had to create a story that made sense. Like, as a teacher, I like problem solving and I liked math. And then, as a paralegal, communication, problem solving, attention to detail. And from that, I would talk about that as the data analyst. Of course, the technical skills are important. And I had a portfolio for that as well. Because, of course, they ask for a lot of things like SQL, some data visualization tool, and Excel. But being able to explain my story and answer the basic, tell me about yourself questions was really helpful, and becoming confident in the transferable skills I have.
Thank you so much. And Jennifer, coming from a very creative field, what advice might you have for some of the folks on this event today who are making that kind of a change as well, like building a bridge and marketing your past experiences to fit the new ones?
Yeah, I think Kelly just explained it really nicely, actually. Like you look for those through lines, because I think one of the misconceptions sometimes when people talk about, a creative job, my personal belief is that I think it's really hard to find a job that's not creative. They're all creative. Most all jobs are some kind of problem solving, and and I think having that, but you need to connect the dots for people. So kind of how Kelly described, it's not going to be completely obvious. You need to come in and say, this relates to this and which relates to that. And they all feed into each other. So I think my experience with that is somewhat similar in that, and that's, again, part of what design is connecting the dots for people. So yeah, I think anyone could really, if you think enough about it, I think there's enough transferability between different types of skill sets, no matter what they are, to really look for that through line.
Thank you so much. I totally agree, especially when we think about things like resumes that feel like static documents. You use the same resume for everything. It's really not the case. It's serving your audience what they need, how they need to see your past and your accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
Liliana, let's talk a little bit about how your kind of customer service into data analytics journey kind of progressed. Can you tell us about any obstacles you faced, or maybe like imposter syndrome and what that felt like as you made those changes and marketed yourself to your new audience?
Yes. And know that my career, of course, started in customer service, and even technical support is relative to customer service too. You're doing some technical things online. You're learning, helping others with their computers and with their systems, which was internal, but it wasn't really a data job. It just turned to be a data job because the things I did to be curious about, right? And it wasn't planned. It wasn't anything planned, right? But there is always this thing in the background saying you're not doing it right. Maybe you're asking too much. Maybe you're saying too much, or maybe you are not saying enough, or you are not saying the right thing. How do you know, right? Because sometimes you don't get that feedback. And that made me realize that my head wasn't in tune with what I wanted. And I started to ask myself, what can I do to overcome those things and to be able to move, right? Because whenever I got that opportunity, I started being a data analyst, but of course, data analyst is a broad career, right? You can start just doing writing queries, that's it. Or you can just start doing building reports, right? And then you get to more to the data engineering side, data infrastructure, which titles I think I overrated all over the world. Sometimes people have a title and you always need to know what they do because every company is different. So doing with all these things, I just kept telling myself, I'm just gonna keep asking, what's the worst that could happen? And my mom always told me that, what's the worst that could happen? They say no, or they say you're wrong, right? And there was a book that I really recommend to everyone to read, which is Adam Grant. I'm sure everyone knows Adam Grant. Think Again, right? Think Again is like, people tell you things, right? And sometimes you have friends, you have coworkers that help you, and those things that they tell you, sometimes it helps you to feel worse, and sometimes it helps you to feel better, right? And you don't know, but you need to find that own path for you. What is good enough? What is not good enough? What am I afraid of, right? And the Think Again book thinking helped me a lot to really open my mind, to listen and just absorb what I needed, right? And then trust myself, right? Trust myself to be able to get to say, okay, this is a setback, maybe. What did I do wrong? What can I do better? Did I really do something wrong? Or maybe I didn't do enough. Maybe I could do something better. And help me also to ask for feedback and also ask others, like, what are you thinking? What do you think about this? Is this the right thing? Because sometimes we think we are doing the right thing and we just don't know. And feedback, that's the other key to be able to succeed. Because if you don't ask for feedback, you don't know where you are and you don't know where you can be. And then when I moved to that career, I started being a full data analyst where I could just build reports and I could bring solutions to them. I could build infrastructure in the database, and it was all because of it. And I remember my manager told me, you're here because of you, not because anyone else. Sometimes you have the opportunity that your managers look out for you a lot, but sometimes you don't. And you always need to look for yourself. You always need to do that because it's important. It's important, and it's you, and it's what you want and where you want to be.
I do believe that we are our own worst critics and that we need to be our own biggest cheerleaders. And I think that's really insightful advice. I know we're going to take a question from the audience. Before we do so, I would love if anyone from our panel has any actionable advice for what some of our attendees could do today to start bridging that gap in thinking about getting that next job without the title, getting the experience without the title. For example, I sometimes work with students who have had internships, and because their title was intern, they feel that they've lacked experience, or maybe they've done a project and they feel that they lack the experience they need. And so I encourage them, next to the word intern, to put in parentheses equivalent to a data analyst or equivalent to whatever it actually is that it could be. Because so often companies put young professionals in spaces that don't have the title, but do garner the skills. So I would encourage our attendees to think, we're not lying on our resumes, but we are saying what the equivalence is, so we can help our audience learn about how important our impact was. Any other advice from our panel of what we can all do today?
I would say something I did a lot with my experience, because also moving from a junior analyst to be a senior analyst is hard too. It's not an easy path. Is volunteer. Volunteer is a great thing. I volunteered. I was a Women Who Code leader. I learned a lot. I went all over. I learned so many things that sometimes you don't realize you learn, and also be able to teach others. Sometimes you give a talk. Sometimes you do a workshop, and that helped you. But also volunteer in the career. There are so many opportunities. Like GitHub.com has a lot, for sure. There's a lot of open source that you could do and get those opportunities to show that. Because when I was interviewed, and I put those volunteer work that I have done, they always ask me, and they're always empowered because you're helping someone else. And that's important for companies these days too. So I will say that's really, really important to do, and try to achieve. Just as I do building a portfolio, which is great, but the volunteering work, it gives you also exposure in an organization to do something they need help with.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Awesome. Very cool. This is an amazing discussion. Lots and lots of comments and questions. Unfortunately, we can only take one, but there was one we were just talking backstage that we definitely wanted to bring up, because this is something that I know that some of the panelists talked about it a little bit during the discussion here, but it comes up a lot. And I did just want to pull this up on the screen. So the question is, how do you explain, thinking about transferable skills, how do you explain your transferable skills through just a resume? You know, so if you're submitting something where you don't have a chance to talk to someone, you know, how do you position that? How do you get those transferable skills noticed and thought about in the terms of how they would transfer to an analytics role? Would love to hear any panel members' perspective on that.
My first piece probably would be, if you can get your hands on a really strong resume for a position that you want. Again, it's like the dissecting of, like, why does that work? What's the language they're using? What are they focusing on? How do you make your current experience kind of map to that experience in some way, so that it's sort of a recognizable language for the person who gets the resume?
Yeah, I think that's also good advice. I kind of did something similar. I looked at resumes online for data analysts. So I kind of mirrored that language in my own resume, except obviously it's like communicate with clients instead of communicate with stakeholders. So I think that helps stand out. And then look at the job posting, like what are they emphasizing as well, and put that in your resume.
Yeah, keywords are really important. And now we have AI, right? You have to leverage AI to help you to reword those things a little bit, but not just that. And I know that there was a really good sample here about transferable skills from paralegal to data analyst, right? She did a great job explaining that. But when you look at the job resume, sometimes we're rushing just to apply to too many. It's better to apply to 2 with good quality than quantity, right? Always look at what is critical in each sentence to see how can I transfer what I did, right? And this is a great example. I work in Women Who Code, and I was solving problems there. I was trying to help the organization to teach others, right? And to support others. And whenever I was doing that, I wanted a senior role. And in a senior role, I have to manage people. I manage people right now, and they help me to build what I build. It's not just me. And that experience helped me to transfer to lead others and to be able to achieve those things, because you need product management skills. You need problem solving skills. It's not just about building the chart, right? And also the communication with the stakeholders, try to understand and getting those insights. When you work in a lot of the jobs, you use those skills. Those skills are used anywhere. When you sell something, you need to tell something to your stakeholders. You need to tell them, because you are the expert of the data, how do you solve that problem and what is the best metric to use? So you do those things there. It's just about how you word them. So take a little bit more of time. And it's not about putting thousands of lines. It's about 2 lines and being to the point. To what is the point? How do I want them to look at me in 2 lines? Which is, I know it's challenging, but practice makes you better every day as you keep doing it.
Awesome advice. I'm so glad that we brought this question up, because each of you gave some really good recommendations on something that's asked about a lot. So thank you very much. And thank you to everyone for being a part of this panel. Thank you, Laura, for moderating. I know it was super helpful. Again, lots of discussion. If anyone wants to hang around in the chat for the event afterwards, feel free. I'm sure folks would love to hear from you. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.